Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Growing Faith with Vivian podcast. And today I have a special guest here with me.
Hey everybody, I'm Neil. Vivian is awesome, and I'm so honored to be on her podcast right now. I would describe myself, well, first of all, really great friends. We met each other because we were working at the same place,
Yeah.
and ever since we've kind of hit it off. And I would describe myself a little bit of a scholar because I recently got my undergrad from NC State University, but I love some God, love some Jesus. I grew up in a Christian family, so I would say I've been a lifelong Christian by association, but um, I'm also thankful to say that I've made my faith my own. So I'm actually very excited to be with Vivian and to talk about some faith here.
Yeah, so guys, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about us as a Christian and our faith, how we were in high school. And we have some questions here that we're going to each answer and talk about.
First question is talk about the kind of person you were in, I guess, your teenage high school years. And well, I can go first. I could go first. Okay, so I would describe the type of person that I was. I know I was very much introverted, very much. I was a quiet child. I was introverted. I was a person that was to myself and enjoyed my own company. And it wasn't like I was a bit shy, but not too shy to the point where I just avoided people, but shy in the sense that I needed people around me to kind of bring me out of my shell. Um, and that worked out because, just to clarify, I wouldn't like it wasn't like I just didn't like people. In fact, I loved people a lot. And I think what stood as like a barrier for me when I was this age is I was very self-conscious and I was often a little bit insecure. And I had things like I was insecure about the way that I talked, like if I was getting through to people. I was really afraid of like being awkward or disappointing people. And I also had I had trouble understanding and having a relationship with my body, so I had a lot of body dysmorphia. But I loved a lot. I just remember that from a younger age. I loved a lot and I loved people. And so I wanted to find ways to love people. And I did so by like working with myself, but trying to, I guess, adapt myself so that I could love people better. So it was always something, I always felt kind of like an internalness about myself that I had to, I guess, cope with and get over at a lot of the time. That's how I describe myself. What about you, Vivian?
Okay, so for me, the kind of person who I was in high school, I would say like similar to you, like I was like the shy and quiet kid, but I would like be able to talk like, like with my friends and like, talk with them and like have a good time with them during like school and stuff like that. Um, but like some days like I would like definitely like feel insecure about myself and like I would like compare myself to people and think like, oh, like they're better than me, or oh, like that person's more prettier than me, or like, they have like a better body than me or whatever. Um but yeah, but I know like probably like every single person, in high school was like insecure, at like some point. So um but yeah, I guess like that's kind of like the person who I was, but like also I was like really like kind and sweet, and like I was like definitely friendly to like every person like, I met, just, have a good attitude and just like have a smile and like, positive attitude like towards like any person I would talk to.
Well, like we are kind of similar that way. It's like
Mhm.
we're very we're like default just like people who keep to ourselves,
Yeah.
but when it came to like social interactions, it brought out like the other side of our personhood. And that was, I think that's a neat observation. Um, the next question was like, describe what your faith was like in high school. That's a Well, this is actually an interesting question, and I like this question. Well, I like this prompt because I know for me personally, around I think 15 or 16 um, was the age where I really started to make my faith my own. So, as I described in my introduction, it's like I always grew up Christian, but this was a time where I actually started to read the Bible, and that's when I started going to church because I was in a Christian family, but I didn't actually grow up in the church. And suddenly my relationship with God became this bigger foundation for how I was to accept myself and make peace around me. And so some of the things I have to thank is the fact that I think my family had a sense of conviction. I remember as a child, my parents had kind of gone out of the church because they had seen like in certain places that they were at, there was a lot of corruption in their church. And so we were called to come back because it was like, we have an impact on the church community, like how we act or how we convey ourselves, how we live our lives is going to better, and it's going to offset, maybe not offset, but it's like we could be the change that we want to see in the church. And then also throughout high school, I played a lot of sports. And so when all these athletic events, like from football or wrestling, we would have like team prayers and that bond of like fellowship and playing and exercising, working out with all your teammates. That brought us closer in our faith because we had people to keep us accountable, people to pray with, people to pray for us. So faith became a foundation for me in high school, and that's how I would describe it. What about you, Vivian?
It's really good. For me, what my faith was like in high school, I feel like, kind of like similar to you. You said like you grew up in a Christian like household. Like, I also did too, and like my mom, she like definitely like she built my foundation on God, and like she like showed me like through example, because like at our old house where we used to live, like every single day in the morning, she would like come into me and my siblings' room, and like we would all like pray together, and like we would like read the Bible together like in Swahili, but like she would like translate it and explain it to us in English, and like we would like sing songs together, and like it was like always like so much fun, and we would always do it together, but like I really like didn't like do it like on my own. I wouldn't like pray or like read the Bible like on my own. But then once I got into high school, I think like that's where like my relationship with God like became like my own, and like that like built my foundation, and I really wanted to like truly like seek God like for myself, like in prayer and like reading my Bible. And I felt like when I started like doing that, I started to see like, wow, like like God like moving in my life, and it was just like really like amazing to see. And and I really thank my mom for that, because like she her relationship with God, I feel like that's what like inspired me to like want like my relationship with God, and like for her like just like to see her like praising God and just like always like seeking him was just truly so beautiful.
That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
So like when you say you sung songs, like were they like hymns?
Yeah, I think so, maybe. I'm not sure.
Were they like in Swahili or they?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Mhm.
That's cool.
Yeah. And I still remember them to this day too. Like the songs?
Could you sing one? You
Uh,
have no pressure.
no, I'm good.
Okay.
It's okay.
Okay, the next prompt is, what did your teenage years teach you about your walk with God? What did our teenage years teach you about your walk with God? That's a banger. I would say for me, I would say my teenage years taught me how to count on God in moments where there was uncertainty. And so I was privileged enough to be in a household where, there was food on the table every night. And I never had like an insecurity about like security or safety or shelter. But I was in high school, and towards the end of my high school years is when COVID struck and we all had lockdowns. You know how that goes. We were all limited, and I just remember in that period of life, there was a growing uncertainty about, not just how the world or life was going to look going from here. We're in the middle of a pandemic, but also kind of like how it was going to look for me. How was I going to hold up? Because I will say that like I was pretty depressed. It was depressing. It was hard to manage myself. I just remember I would bed rot a lot. There wasn't much to do. I had a job during that time, but they wouldn't schedule me much, and my job wasn't the funnest work environment. It was just, it wasn't the most enjoyable things in the world. So, and then I also still dealt with a lot of insecurity about my body, about my personality, the kind of person that I was trying to be. And so, in that time, I just had a lot of growing anxiety about myself. A lot of this was just internalized, and what made it worse is it came from, you had a super social environment, because even as introverts, to be surrounded by people it does something beneficial to your mental health. Like, to be in an environment where there's things going on is still important. So you see that kind of diminish, and then it's really just me. And so I remember at first it was just, I was anxious and unmotivated a lot. And this was a bad period to be unmotivated, because it was getting close to the time where I was trying to get ready and go to college. And college, it even continued throughout college. But I know through this period, it was just hard to find motivation just to keep going. But that's where you go to seek God and say, God, where would you like to take me, or take me where you want me to go? And I realized in this period of life that there's like a bigger assignment beyond just me, and it's to go and make moments and go and make peace in the world, and to go and be with God, and to count on and seek his presence. And so as I started to do that a little bit more, it took a while for me to come around. I'll be completely honest. It wasn't just like I was all put together by the end of I think it was maybe 21 or 22 where I really started to feel strong and strengthened enough in my faith. But I remember in that moment, I was like, I can't keep up like this. I'm going to just be self-conscious and insecure all the time. So I need to learn how to count on God and understand that how I show up for myself is going to take a big impact into how I show up outside of myself and in other environments. And so ultimately, this became a big developing phase. And I was just taught to count on God, because God is going to give you places to go. He's going to give you things to do. And He's going to show you some things that you might not have expected. And that's one thing that I am very grateful for in my faith so far. So I know that was a long tangent, but well, how do you? Now I'm curious to know your answer to this. What did your teenagers teach you about your walk with God?
I would say my teenage years taught me to really lean on God, especially like during the hard times and like the moments where like I felt like just like things were just like so hard and like I couldn't like deal with them on my own. Like that's when I had to like lean on God and like talk to Him and like tell Him about it, and like prayer and like read my word to like strengthen me and strengthen my spirit. Because in my last podcast episode, I was talking about my testimony and how my junior and senior year, it was like those 2 years of high school, the last 2 years of high school, like they were really difficult for me, and like I was like depressed, and it was just like not the best. But like during like those times, like I felt like I was trying to like lean on my own strength and like do it on my own, because like I needed to graduate, and like I had to like really focus on my classes, and I had like a lot of work, so it was just like overwhelming. And like my parents, like they were like trying to help me, and like my family, and it was just like a lot to deal with. And I know like during like those hard times where I was like struggling, I know I should have like been leaning more on God, but like if I'm being honest, like I wasn't. I was like doing the opposite, and I actually was like far away from God, which like I know like isn't good. I know I should have done that, but like sometimes like you feel like you're like, no, like I can do this like on my own, I can like figure it out, but like in the end it's like you can't. You're just like making like yourself like worse, and like not good. But yeah, I wish I would have like leaned more on God, because I know He would have like helped me, and He would have like like given me like answers, and He would have like guided me like along like better through my decisions and everything that I was like facing and like struggling with, that was hard for me to deal with. But yeah,
That was beautiful, Vivian. And it's like it just takes. Well, that's what I know. Sometimes it's kind of like, I feel like we often, I guess we're off under this notion that like, oh, we just find God and we just stick with Him, and everything is happy and sunshines and rainbows, and we never struggle again. But like, it's really not like that. Like sometimes it's, because I mean, sometimes we have to wrestle with ourselves a little bit. And we might have moments where we feel super close, and some moments where we feel a bit farther away.
Yeah.
But God always brings us in. So the last question was, what's something you wish you could tell your younger self? And I really like this question, and I was thinking about this, and I started overthinking about this. But I think I would boil it down to what God told Paul, which was, my grace is sufficient. And so I would tell my younger self, His grace is sufficient. So go to God and count on His grace, because that's enough. And what I would think, how I would describe my younger self is I felt like a lot of things, I felt like it was all up to me in a lot of different ways. I thought I had to fix myself so that I could appropriately show up for the world around me. And I felt like if I didn't get myself right, then nothing was going to go right. And so I thought it was me, 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 and I had to like do certain things for myself. And while that stands true to a certain degree, like you do want to care for yourself, I had to understand that like not all the time could I expect to be 100%. Not all the time could I expect to have full confidence. Not all the time could I expect to just have everything go my way, even if I had the best intentions in mind. And so I remember I wanted to be someone who could do good in the world, who could do things that would reflect my faith, or do things that would glorify God, would bless God. But I guess I came from it from the wrong mindset, that it's like, oh, if I don't get right, everything's going to get me. And it's not always about that. What I didn't realize is that everything that you're able to accomplish and all the things that you are able to do that does bless the Lord is still by the grace of God. So even when you wake up in the morning, that was a blessing. That was by the grace of God. So that's why I needed to count on God's grace. And so going forward, that's what I always tell myself when I pray is I thank God. It's something to thank God for. And I remember my younger self, I was taught to count on God, but also I should have, what I didn't understand or what I didn't fully internalize at that point was you have God's presence and you call for him around you. Having him is enough to be blessed and to be moved. And when I tell my younger self his grace is sufficient, I want him to understand that it's not always up to you, but like even when you accomplish great things, that's by the grace of God. So it's a testimony in understanding that even though you want good things for yourself, even though you want yourself to be in certain ways, don't be discouraged. Seek God and count on his grace. Okay, Vivian.
Wow, very good answer. Okay, so for me, something I would tell my younger self is that I would tell my younger self to lean on God through the hard moments and like the trials that are like happening in my life, because I feel like especially like during my junior senior year of high school, like those were like my hardest like last 2 years of high school, because as I was talking about this in my last podcast episode about my testimony, I was like really depressed. And I also like along with it, like me being depressed, like I had like really bad like intrusive like negative thoughts. I feel like the enemy was like always attacking my mind, and like that would just get like really bad. So just like all of those things, then on top of that I had like schoolwork and I had people counting on me. They just like wanted like to help me, but it's like I was just already feeling like overwhelmed like within myself, and just like just going through like everything like in my life, right? So I feel like during those moments, I wish I would have like leaned closer and been more like closer to God in prayer and reading my Bible and meditating on scripture, but I didn't. I was doing the opposite, and I was actually really far away from God, and I feel like I was just like going through it on my own, but I knew that like God just wanted me to like come to him and just be vulnerable and honest, and just like be my like vulnerable self, and to not hold back, to just like cry, like feel my emotions to him and let him know like how I'm truly feeling, and how like everything in my life, how it's like weighing like heavy like on my heart and mind, and how like I just feel like I can't like do it on my own and lean on my own strength. Like I have to lean on God and depend on him, because I know that he will guide me and he will help me like through it all, right? So I wish I would tell my younger self like to lean on God and to know that he's always going to come through, and that he's always there for me, and that he's always going to love me no matter what. And also I would tell my younger self to not feel insecure and to not compare myself to people, and because I feel like that kind of like revolves around my identity, right? Because I shouldn't be caring about like what other people think of me. I should only be caring about what God thinks of me. And I know like God already like knows that I'm beautiful because God made me. No like human or person created me, right? Created me in my mother's womb. So like why am I gonna like be like sit here being insecure and wish like, oh my gosh, I wish like I was like this girl, her body is nice, like I'm like this, like no, 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 no. I know who I am, and I should, my identity is in God because He created me. So I don't need to feel insecure because God already loves me and He already calls me beautiful. So yeah, I think that is everything I would tell my younger self.
That was very beautiful. I, we keep saying things are beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, is you know what else is beautiful? How God kind of molds our lives in these wonderful ways,
Mhm.
so that like even in those hard moments where we do have to lean on Him, like you said,
Yeah.
there's grace even in those moments because they lead us to come to God
Yes.
with our struggles.
Mhm.
And so there's value in all of it. I forget where in the Bible where they say, consider it all joy or count it all joy. But it really is all joy, even when you want to cry,
Mhm.
or even when you feel super uncertain about yourself to the point where you don't want to get out of bed.
I think it was in James. Count it all, consider it all joy when you
Yes,
go
it
through
is in
trials of many.
James.
Yeah, it's in James.
You
I
know
think
what I'm
James
saying?
1. Yeah.
If you read her Bible. But yeah, like, wow. I feel like I've learned a lot more about you.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, like even that's why I'm glad to be on this episode because like
Mhm.
even we've been talking for like years now. But,
Yeah.
like, shoot, even throughout this conversation, it's like there's so much more to learn,
Mhm.
and like I'm really inspired right now. It's great.
That's good. So yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. This was really fun to make, and I'm glad that Neil was able, to come and talk with us. So yeah, guys, hope you liked today's episode. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and comment down below if you want, if you want Neil to be in more podcast episodes in the future. But yeah.